What's up, JetNation? You want a little info on the biggest news of the day for the New York Jets? Alright, JetNation, this is GreenBean. I am coming to you from just outside of Jacksonville, Florida today. A little bit warmer, but it's been cold in Florida. I don't like it. I didn't winter in Florida for cold, but I'm sure it's not as cold as where you are, so I'll take it. But we have some big news. Big news. Before we get to that, let me remind you to please like and subscribe. JetNation.com. If you're looking to get into a Jet conversation or hear the latest news with official sources and all that kind of stuff that's outside of the Jets beat, JetNation.com is the #1 place in the country for that. It is the largest independent fan site in the NFL, not just New York. In the NFL, there's not a single team in the entire league that has a better, larger, more robust fan site than JetNation. You can also check out my new YouTube channel, which is where my podcast lives. YouTube, GreenBean Jets Fan. 2 words, GreenBean Jets Fan. Instagram, GreenBean the Jets Fan. Twitter, Being the Jets Fan. Now let us get into it. So much good stuff. So, we hired a coach. We fired a guy who looked like he never made it into the sun. Pale, rings under his eyes, little bit of an asshole, all those kinds of things. So now we get rid of him. And we replace him with a passionate, well-respected intellect. Can you believe that? Robert Saleh is actually known as an intellect. You wouldn't think that when you first look at him, but that's why players respect him. He has a calm about him. He's reserved. He is intelligent. He is constructive. All those things. These are the words coming out around him or about him. But on top of that, he is as passionate of a coach as we've ever seen. Now, we loved Rex Ryan, didn't we? We loved some Rex Ryan. We loved the fire, the balls, the gumption, the attack, the violent defense, all those things. Bart Scott, all that stuff. But there was bluster attached to it. Boasting. Okay? And you know what happens with boasting. When you're not winning and you're boasting, you look like what? What's the word? Fool. And that's what ended up happening to Rex Ryan. We loved him the first 2 years, and then that bluster just made us look pretty foolish, and they started with the circus and the clown show and all that sort of stuff. Robert Saleh, while just as passionate as Rex Ryan, has no bluster. It's not bluster, okay? It's confidence. This guy is a football guy. All right, so let's get into some things. Like I said, we hired Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, to be our head coach last night. So the Jets had their round of Zoom interviews, which is virtual interviews. They interviewed the likes of Marvin Lewis, Aaron Glenn, Joe Brady, Arthur Smith, Brian Dable, obviously Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, Staley from the Rams. So we got a whole bunch of guys in there, some coordinators, a previous head coach, a position coach, and Aaron Glenn. So we did all that, and then we had our round of second interviews. Word on the street is this. Robert Saleh was the #1 guy out of that group of people that they wanted. Joe Douglas's #1 guy was Robert Saleh the whole time once they met. But the interesting thing about him becoming the #1 guy is that Joe Douglas had never met Robert Saleh before last week. So think about the impression that Robert Saleh made on Joe Douglas in that time. Now, when he left the Jets organization, he left the Jets building. A lot of people got scared that it didn't work out. Christopher Johnson came into the fray, and the money piece came up, and they lost the deal, and we lost our guy. The truth of it is that the Jets already had schedules, and so did Robert Saleh, so they wanted to just complete that next wave of schedules. There was a process. They wanted to complete the process. Now, #2, interestingly enough, was Arthur Smith. Not a guy I would have chosen, but out of the 9 interviews that they got done, really 2 came out of that for Joe Douglas and the Jets brass. Robert Saleh, Arthur Smith. So they met with Robert Saleh for 2 days. They met with Arthur Smith for 1 more day, and they realized this is the guy we want. Let's get this done. And they did. When Robert Saleh left the Jets, this is gonna blow your mind. He was reported to be telling people that he trusts, that's the job I want. I want to work for Joe Douglas. Chris Johnson actually made a pretty strong impression on him as well. He loved the facility, everything. He wanted to work for the New York Jets. So this kind of kills a lot of what we fear, and we have justification for our fears that nobody wants to work for us. Robert Saleh, who had never met Joe Douglas, never been to One Jets Drive, all that sort of stuff, the impression that our people and our facility made on him was so much so that even when he went to meet with Philly and was scheduled to fly out to meet with the Los Angeles Chargers for a second interview, the job that he wanted, he left there feeling strongly, that's the one I want. If they want me, that's where I want to go. So that's really, really good news. So they got it done. Now, what does this do? It's really some cool stuff that comes out of this. I want to let you know something today. As of last night, when we hired Robert Saleh to be our head coach, the Jets are now the organization in the NFL with the most minority hires in NFL history. Okay? So while there's a lot of change trying to take place in the NFL, trying to, undo some old systems and all that sort of stuff, it turns out that the Jets are ahead of the game. If you don't know, we hired Herm Edwards before the Rooney Rule. So the Jets have always been kind of this way. Granted, it's not where it needs to be maybe, and that all can be argued, but the truth is that when you look at organizations, there are organizations that have never had a minority anything other than coordinators and such. So the Jets have had now 3 minority head coaches, and what this does for the 49ers, well, the Rooney Rule made you interview at least one minority candidate for both GM and head coaching positions. Now that has had its impact on the NFL. If you look at the stats before the Rooney Rule and after the Rooney Rule, it's not even a comparison. That said, the Rooney Rule could only go so much, and it started to look like there was a lot of obligatory meetings. And who wants that, right? So the Rooney Rule had its impact, but it never got to where they hoped it would get. Now, what they did last year was they flipped it, and they benefited the team where the minority coach came from. So if you have a pipeline of good minority coaches that are actually qualified to be maybe GMs or head coaches, they will actually reward the team that they came from. So this is, I believe, the first time this has happened. I don't know. I might be wrong on that. But what I do know is that the San Francisco 49ers, because the Jets hired Robert Saleh for head coach, and this is what happens with a traveling show. Sorry. So because the Jets hired a 49ers coordinator to be our head coach, the 49ers are now rewarded 2 third-round picks. One will be in this draft in 2021, and one will be in the draft 2022. Now that is going to be motivation where the Rooney Rule comes up short. It falls short. The 49ers getting 2 third-round picks, that is good stuff. That is good stuff. So now it looks like maybe more teams are going to put a little emphasis on developing quality coaches from the minority side of things because it will actually benefit the team. And that's what it all boils down to, sadly, in this world. It's the bottom line. It's the bottom line. And in the NFL, the bottom line it's not only money, but it might just include draft capital. That's just as good as money. So the 49ers get 2 third-round picks. The Jets get Robert Saleh as their new fiery, intelligent head coach who's a football man. Did you notice his traps? Anybody notice his traps yet? Take a look at his traps. Take a look at his shoulders. The guy's a rock. He might even be the Rock for all I know. They kind of, bald head, ripped. He's not quite that big. But the good thing about this is that I've even heard reports that Robert Saleh will take time and actually work out with guys. So that's another connection that, Adam Gase, Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, they didn't have that connection with these guys. Rex Ryan was so fat he had to get surgery. And we all know once he had the surgery, something happened. I think they took out his brain. So I don't know what happened. It was like fat Rex, good. Skinny Rex, bad. I don't know. I don't know if it's real or not. It seems pretty real. So here we are. We got Robert Saleh as the head coach, and with him comes Mike LaFleur, the passing game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, a lot of people say that Mike McDaniels is the right-hand man of Kyle Shanahan, and that might be true to a degree. But the interesting piece about LaFleur is that Shanahan has actually brought LaFleur with him in his last bunch of stops. So he got him at Cleveland, he hired him at Cleveland, took him to Atlanta, took him to 49ers. So LaFleur has been with Shanahan longer. And LaFleur has been a guy that Shanahan felt it important enough to have by his side the whole time. Kyle Shanahan, as we know, is one of the more forward-thinking young NFL offensive minds. So having the guy that's been with him a long time, coming up through that system, really running the system, is a good thing, guys. Rather than taking a guy like Joe Brady, who is clearly one of the younger up-and-coming offensive minds, as the head coach. We don't want to overwhelm him and hire him the head coach, leapfrog, kind of a whole chunk of time. We got somebody probably on the same tier as Joe Brady, as our offensive coordinator, where he should be. Okay? Where he should be. So this is all very, very good news, guys. I hope that you're excited. We can't wait to find out who our defensive coordinator. There has been slight little whispers that Chris Richard from the Dallas Cowboys might be considered. I think that would be a slam dunk hire, another fiery guy, very well respected by his players, and the fans love him as well down there. And on an emotional level, we're hoping that, I know a lot of people I've talked to already, hundreds of Jets fans about this. On an emotional level, we're hoping that the interview with Aaron Glenn for head coach was really to get a nice little book on him and give it to Robert Saleh and say, hey, maybe you can consider this guy for defensive coordinator. It would be a beautiful thing if we were able to see Aaron Glenn return to our organization as our defensive coordinator. He's done a very, very good job with the Saints as their defensive backs coach, and the progression is natural. It would be beautiful. That said, I trust Joe Douglas. I trust Robert Saleh to actually get all this stuff done the right way and pick the right people. But I want to just point out one last thing before I go. When we're looking at our GM, people don't like him, people like him, people love him, people are on the fence about him. When you look at this hire and how it was done, he didn't know Robert Saleh. He interviewed with a clean slate. He didn't just go and hire Doug Peterson. He didn't just go and hire Greg Roman or Wink Martindale or any of these guys that he has a relationship with. On the flip side, he didn't even interview those guys. Why? Maybe to kill the buddy rule. He just didn't want it. He didn't want that to be part of what he does. Maybe to a fault. Who knows? But he didn't even interview the guys that were more closely connected with Joe Douglas. Like I said, Doug Peterson, head coach of the Eagles, just fired. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator of the Ravens. Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. He did not even bring them in for a meeting. Okay? So it's interesting when you look at it. He met Robert Saleh just last week, fell in love with him, went through 2 days of meetings, let him leave, interviewed his number two, didn't quite meet up to the potential that Robert Saleh had, and he got him. Okay? He went and got his guy. We have a batch of men that are actually football guys. I know it sounds ridiculous to say that for a football team, but we don't have an accountant as a GM. We don't have a failed head coach as our head coach. A guy who players and organizations alike can't stand because of one phone call. Okay? He hired guys that look like they're going to be able to build a football team. And the last thing, Joe Douglas and Chris Johnson gave him a 5-year contract, which just so happens to be right about the same number of years that Joe Douglas has remaining on his contract. If that doesn't show you the confidence that Joe Douglas has in this hire, I don't know what you're looking at. He tied his cart to Robert Saleh as his head coach. That takes balls. Just like the trade back at 48 to 59 took balls. Just like taking Mekhi Becton over Wirfs had balls. Okay? Just like trading Jamal Adams had balls, took balls. Okay? Joe Douglas, he's not a blustery balls guy. He's an intelligent, constructive, well thought out batch of balls. I'm losing control of this balls thing. He tied his cart to Robert Saleh 100%. 5 years, 5 years. That's what they have. If this guy doesn't make it, then I don't make it. Come on. JetNation, I hope you're as happy as I am today. Wasn't my number one guy, but out of the 9, he was my 1 and 2. Dable and him were my 1 and 2. That was it. So I'm very happy. I hope you are. If you have any questions, concerns, let me know in the comment section. As you know by now, I reply to every single one of you. Every single comment, and not just a bullshit comment like, hey, thanks. I talk to you. So if you have questions, you want to vent something, you got ideas, let me know. Go to JetNation.com, get in the conversation. Check my podcast out on GreenBean Jets Fan YouTube or wherever podcasts are found. I'm all over the joint as far as that goes. Thanks for watching. Fucking go Jets.